Today we are here to talk about these three books. Hello, welcome to my channel, Cinder Allie Loves Disney. If it's your first time stopping by, hi, my name is Allie. Today I'm going to be doing a comparison on three different Cinderella story retellings that I have read in the last month. Let me just start off by saying at the beginning of this video that there's going to be a lot of spoilers. I'm going to try not to fully tell you the whole thing, but I know even when like I said, I think I might have mentioned this in one of my video diaries, but I know even when I've watched other people tell like synopsis of what a book is about and maybe give some spoilers, it still sounds interesting to me and I want to read it. So just forewarn you that I am going to be talking about specifics and what you might call spoilers about these books. I did not think to do a full video diary as I was reading each of these books until I got to the very end. I knew I wanted to do a comparison, and then my friend Nina over at Wrestling with Disney was telling me, she's like, you know, it would be cool if you did like kind of like a diary or full reading vlog kind of thing. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea, but I had already like read the first two books by the time we had talked about it. So I was like, okay. So I did a diary kind of on this last book, which I'll show, and I'll insert that footage as we go. So the first one is Cinder, and it's about a cyborg. So you can see in the illustration here, there's like metal kind of under skin, almost like a Terminator in a sense. And this is part of the Lunar Chronicles. And I now, after reading this, I need to find out what happens to her because it's kind of like up in the air. It continues, and I guess you hear about her throughout the different other stories in this series. They kind of like are all about different Disney princesses, but the stories intertwine. So I definitely am on the hunt to find the rest of these, books. But I will get to that. I just want to quickly show all three of them here. The next one, oh, I love this one. It is called So This Is Love, and it is one of those twisted tales. Yeah, again, this one's like, what if Cinderella never tried on the glass slipper? I did film a little bit of footage about that one, and I will again insert that footage. And then the last one here is Cinder Glass. I just love this cover. And in the story, it describes her, this is the way she looks. Oh, it got a little blurry there. This is the way she looks in the story when she attends one of the balls. There's more than one ball in this one, but she does have this particular dress. I mean, it's described perfectly, and this illustration is exactly what came to mind when they were describing it in the book. Okay, so let's start off with this first one here, Cinder. And again, this is by Marissa Meyer. And actually I think this is technically in what's called, what do they call it? Like the teen reading section or something like that in the store, which I was surprised, but I just happened to be walking around a few years ago in the bookstore and came across this like on a table, and I didn't realize it was like supposed to be for like teen reading or youth or whatever, but it is a great story. I mean, that's where they had it. I honestly don't know if that's what the author had in mind when she wrote it, but this book, I will admit, at the beginning, it was kind of hard to get through. Like, even though I knew the story was about a cyborg girl, so I kind of had a hard time, like, almost like relating to her as a person, like she was a real person. But then you find out a little bit later into the book that she was born like a human and had an accident, and so certain parts of her body are replaced, had to be replaced. So it's almost like, you know, like if someone loses a limb and they get a prosthetic leg, except for it's a little bit more complex. So anyways, as I was saying, like this one, it was a little bit hard to identify with her until I got like probably a third of the way in, and then I couldn't put it down. Like I read this in less than a week, and I've never, ever that I can ever recall in my entire life read a book that fast. I just devoted so much time to it. You know, of course, like now it's a little different because I'm a working adult and all that kind of thing. As a kid, I had more time to like just sit down and read all day, but this was like, I never read a book so quick. And so this kind of kicked off me reading in general for this year, which I'm really happy about because I'm already on my 4th book and we're only in February right now. So this is like a complete record breaking for me. And I was going to split up these stories, but then I was like, you know, I want to just keep going with the Cinderella retellings. Now I will say, sometimes I was getting a little bit of the details mixed up, and then I was like, oh wait, no, that's the other book. So it may not necessarily have been a good idea to read these all back to back, but I definitely enjoyed it. So anyway, like I do want to find these other books now in this series because I want to find out what happens, because they kind of leave this almost like at a cliffhanger at the end. It's like, you're like, whoa, it's like just getting good. You're just getting deep into the story, and then, oh, fade to black. It's the movie's over kind of thing. I was like, wait, what? So, because it was kind of misleading, because at the back there's like a really good, I had like this much left to read, and I was like, oh, you know, it's not over yet. But when I turned the page, it's actually a preview to one of the other books. So I was like, wait, it is over. So that one was kind of like, it left me like wanting more. And like I said, now I'm going to go out and try to find the rest of these books, because I definitely want to find out what happens to this main character.
We interrupt this program because I forgot to read the back synopsis. So I'm going to share the screen here really quick so you can take a look at it. I do mention later that I didn't think they said the ages, but it does say that she is 16 years old, the main character.
And in her case, this one was, the story was basically like the Cinderella story, as in the woman that was married to the girl who the father who adopted this girl, in a sense, his wife had 2 daughters. They had 2 daughters, and he passes away, kind of thing. And then she's stuck living at this place. So these are all like very, very similar to the original Cinderella story. Now, this one, I loved this book. I have all these books that, you know, on the shelves down here that I've read years ago, and I eventually want to read them again. This is the first time I've ever actually like read this and be like, I want to read this again, like very soon, because I just loved this book. This is by Elizabeth Lim. Again, it's So This Is Love. And I'm going to insert some footage really quick here of when I first started reading this book and what I thought about it. So I quickly wanted to share that I am reading this book here, and I am loving it so far. It's called So This Is Love, A Twisted Tale by Elizabeth Lim. And it says, what if Cinderella never tried on the glass slipper? Crazy, right? It's really cool because it's basically starts off with Cinderella already being at the ball, and some of it is like the actual verbiage from the movie itself, and then it kind of twists into some other stuff. But what I thought was really cool is that she has a major conversation with the prince here, and you don't get that in the movie. You don't really get to find out what they talked about when they first met and stuff like that. So I think that is a really cool thing about this book. And it also gives a lot of the background for some of the characters, like the fairy godmother and the Tremaines, and a lot of people. So I think it's really, really cool. So as I said earlier, I wished I had continued to kind of like do a video diary on that. I think I have one other piece of footage on this book that I'm going to insert really quick. It was the event of the season, a royal ball in King George's palace that every eligible maiden had been invited to attend. And Cinderella couldn't believe she was going. One dance, she promised herself, watching the palace draw near from within her carriage. If I just have one dance, even if it's by myself, I'll be happy. I just want to remember what it's like to be free, to spin round and round under the moonlight. The palace was tremendous, a city within itself. Cinderella could have spent the entire evening simply exploring the courtyard where her carriage dropped her off. But she'd arrived hours late, so late that there was no one in the entrance to greet her. Even the halls inside were... So I know I filmed a couple of different things, and I can't remember if I said this, but this book was so cool because you got so much more about the characters. I think I did say this. See, there's a lot of backstory about the characters, but I will tell you, like, in the first, like, 20 pages, this book literally goes from the ball. It opens up at the ball, and she's with the prince, but she doesn't know it. You know, she's having this splendid conversation with this person, ends up having to leave, ends up back at the stepmother's house, and turns into like almost like human trafficking, borderline craziness and kidnapping. And I was like, whoa, this took like a serious crazy turn here. And I was like shocked, and I was like, I don't know if I can continue, like what's happening here. But this is another one where I really couldn't put this book down. Like, I read it a lot. Like, every night after work I was trying to read it. I would read when I had a chance on the weekend. Sometimes I was staying up late, you know, to read. But this story was just so wonderful once it got going. It really, and at first I was like, well, gosh, we're already like, you know, early on I was like, we're already like to a point to where, like, if I was watching one of the 3 movies, and I'll tell you, it was almost like a combination of Cinderella 1, 2, and 3, and then something different. So think about those movies, those cartoons, if you've seen them. And I was like, well, gosh, we're already like to the point to where like all the movies would have ended almost already. And I had like so much more left to read. But this story spun into something so neat. And I'm trying, I don't want to give like 100% of it away, but I will say that it was so enjoyable, and the love story on it was just incredible. It was literally like, it was a fairy tale. It was a twisted tale, but definitely a fairy tale, and ended so neat. And I'm not going to give you away the ending, but it goes way past like the way the movies end. So I really enjoyed and appreciated that. I do have one other Twisted Tale book that I am looking forward to reading eventually too, to see how that one intrigues me. And I may end up wanting to get all of them, kind of like the same with this other book, wanting to get every single one of them that's in the series. But this one by far is my absolute ultimate favorite book of the Cinderella story. But now let's get into this one. So this is Melissa Dela Cruz that wrote Cinder and Glass. And I did film a video diary about this. And I have a couple different sections of film that I filmed. And I'm pretty sure I remember everything I said in them. So I'm going to go ahead and cut to those really quick right now. So this is the book I am about to start reading right now. And I will do my best to do sort of like a diary as I'm going through. This is by Melissa Dela Cruz, and it is called Cinder and Glass. And it says, for this princess, winning the crown is no fairy tale. So let's talk about this book so far. It's interesting this is called Cinder and Glass because the main character's name is actually Cendrillon, which is Cendrillon. Cendrillon, I'm assuming is how you pronounce it. And this one definitely has started with a little bit of a twist. Now let's see, I am on page 59 at this point, or 58 actually. So I've read a few chapters in here, and it's been really enjoyable. It's actually started off completely unlike a Cinderella movie, or a Cinderella story. It's interesting. There is a ball, but it starts off with a girl whose father is alive, and they are a little bit on the richer side, I guess you could say. And her father got this job to work for the king as the king's aide in the palace, and they end up going there. She sneaks into the ball. I'm trying not to give too much away, But they end up moving there. She's taking these lessons. She's met a prince that she didn't know was a prince at first. Was hanging out with him a lot, then found out he was the prince. That's kind of where I'm at. She's not really talking to him at this point because she's a little upset about the fact that he didn't say that he was a prince. And now her father has mysteriously met a woman at the ball, and within a week is already getting married to her, and she has 2 daughters that are really crummy, horrible people that the main character, Cinderella, has already run into and had run-ins with a couple times. They're very nasty, and now they're going to be her stepsisters. That is where I'm at in this book. And so I'm just about to finish the wedding of her father. And just before that, God, I'm giving away a lot of spoilers here. So just before that, they were talking about somebody was trying to get their hands on some kind of a love potion, but we thought it was for the king to use on the king. I have a feeling this was used on her father. I do not know why, but all of a sudden he was interested in another woman. It looked like they were going to actually head it off and get married, and it was someone that Cinderella knew her whole life, had been a friend of her mother's. Her mother had passed away when she was young, and so it really looked like the 2 of them were going to get together. It was a real happy story. All of a sudden, this woman comes out of nowhere, and she's less than 2 weeks in marrying her father. It's pretty crazy. So now I'm interested to see where the story goes. I guess in this aspect, it is similar to the Cinderella story. It's just kind of more of a prelude to that. It's started off with the father alive, and this is the interactions, and she's already at the royal palace and that kind of thing, and has gone to the ball while the father's alive. So anyways, yeah, it's been really cool. I'm really enjoying this book so far. I've enjoyed all 3 of these books that I've read, but I'll be looking forward to doing a full-on comparison and maybe giving a little bit more info as I'll wait till I get at least another third of the way in the book before I do another update. So hopefully, we'll see, unless I get really excited about what's happening. All right, more to come. Hey, just wanted to do a quick check-in with where I'm at on this book, Cinder Glass. Sorry about the strange angle. I've got you propped up on something because I am at lunch right now and I didn't want to go get my tripod out and all that kind of stuff. Today is Wednesday, February 15th. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, so I hope everyone had a lovely Valentine's Day. But to get to where things are at with this book, I don't think I mentioned that the book is set in around mid-1800s. I want to say 1859 for some reason. I'll have to double check if I can find the exact date. But it's set in the mid-1800s, and it is in France. And so, like, the main characters' last names and some of the words that they use are in French. And I kept getting stumped, so I tried to look up what some of those words, like how you pronounce them, because I would just like fumble like whenever I'd get to some of those words and not know how to read it and get past it. So I just did that for me. That was something I had to do because I wanted to make sure I was either saying it right or I say it how I think it sounds. Anyhow, so I am pretty sure I'm going to finish this book by the weekend. I only have this much left to read. I'm on page 249 and there are 316 pages. So I'll definitely finish this in the next couple days. But this book is really good. And I want to film the synopsis of all 3 books this weekend. So I'll be able to put that video up soon. Well, I mean, this will all be in the same video now that I think about it. But I'll hopefully be able to put that video up in the next couple weeks, depending on when I can film this. But this book is so captivating. In the thing about it, where it's at right now, like back in those times, like, you know, in the 1800s, like, and especially like in France and this area that they're at, like they're called courtiers or people of the court, like the royal court. They all had to behave a certain way. And there were certain things that people did not do. Like if you were not like a married couple, you did not display any kind of public affection. You didn't hug, like a woman didn't hug a man. They didn't hold hands. They didn't do things like that unless they were, I guess, like, you know, committed to each other. And so it's really interesting reading through some of this because, you know, it didn't explain like why the girl is this way, but she like her immediate reaction was like to just hug this person that's her friend. And like she had to realize, oh my gosh, I know that was improper. I can't do that. But it's how I felt is what, you know, what she said. So it's really interesting, like seeing this perspective and just like, I'm getting kind of frustrated reading some of it going, oh my gosh, like the way that things were thought of and people had to behave back then were so different. Because I know for me personally, the reason why I use that example is I'm a hugger. Like I love to, like, any friends or people that I know, I always like say hi with a hug. And so for me to have to live in those times, I think would be very, very difficult, because I'm very much of a, you know, like I said, a hugger type of person. So I'm really trying to decide like how much information I want to share about the book. I don't want to give too much away so that you don't want to end up reading the book. It's definitely a wonderful story. Like I said, I've kind of given quite a bit of spoilers out on it already, but I think instead of just basically telling you where I'm at and what I've read up to at this point, I'm going to wait until I film my overall synopsis comparing all three of the books together. Hopefully by this weekend I'll be able to do that, like I said. And then we'll have some more information together, and it'll, like I said, it might be a complete spoiler, but I know sometimes when I watch other people do you know, these type of videos and share about books, like even though they tell a lot about what's happening in the story, I still think it's interesting and still would want to read it. So hopefully me doing this doesn't spoil that for anyone. Okay, so I'm going to finish out this book, and hopefully the next time I see you will be on the full synopsis video of comparing all three of the books. See you then. Yeah, this book was like really cool. And what I didn't like, okay, a couple things. One, I forgot to mention in that video diary that I had filmed when I was filming it on February 15th, which was the day after Valentine's Day. I failed to mention that was also Cinderella's anniversary, and I did have a video come out where I shared some things from my collection in honor of her 73rd anniversary. But that was Cinderella's anniversary, and I actually did finish this book that night. I literally like finished filming, made dinner, ate dinner, and immediately went to reading and read this up until I went to bed and had finished the book. And okay, this is the one book out of the three that actually says at the beginning that the main character is 15 years old. I don't think it was mentioned in the other books that I can remember, but I know in this book, the character's 15. And I was trying to find, I thought it had a year. That's right, I was gonna look up the year that it supposedly started. And is that in here? Oh, I think it's a lot earlier than I thought. I thought it was 1800s. It might actually have been from the 1600s. It says 1682. So wow, yeah, this really dates back. But after I read the book, at the very end, again, thinking I had like more to the story to kind of read, it actually went on to talk kind of about like the author's notes and like how this story was inspired. And it was so incredible because almost every single character was based on a real person, and some of them, the names were the same, were the real names. And so what I didn't know, what she wrote in here, because I kept going, well, it's called Cinder Glass, but the main character's name is Cendrillon, Cendrillon, Cendrillon. Well, here at the very end, in her notes, it actually says that in one of the fairy tales, in French, Cinderella's name is Cendrillon. So it made perfect sense. And the chapters and the things that she experiences in the book are Cinder and Glass. And she actually says that her name is Cinder at one point when she's trying to remain anonymous at one point in the book. So, and that was, and I think it did reference back to something that her dad possibly used to call her, which is how they got the name. In both this book and So This Is Love, it references something to that effect about, it was kind of like a nickname that she got when she was a kid. But this love story was wow. I mean, by the time you had watched the last two pieces of footage, she was already 16, and it ends with her being 16. And the description of their love story is like, I mean, granted, I know it's fiction, but it was like incredible. I was like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't even imagine feeling this and having this kind of love at 16. Maybe, I mean, I wasn't too much older when I did meet my husband, and we ended up together for the rest of our lives. But yeah, I mean, it was something else. I really, really enjoyed it. There was a lot of sadness that occurred in the beginning too, as far as like, you know, it's a similar story where the mother character is usually already passed away at the beginning of the book. And in this version, and I think I mentioned this in my diary, I can't remember, but in this version, her father's alive. She's living with the father. There's things going on at the beginning, and he's in a good portion of the book. So it was almost like a prelude to what we've known today as the typical Cinderella story, where she had, you know, all this time with her father. Well, not all of it. I mean, she was only 15 when he passed away, but you know, we at least heard some of the story about it a little bit more in detail than we got from the cartoon, or I call it the cartoon, but I say the movie, but you know, I know there's so many live action movies, but I'm talking about the original 1950 Walt Disney Productions movie. So we got a lot more of that. So I thoroughly enjoyed all three of these books. It was really hard to kind of do this comparison. And I mean, I think I would want to reread this book too. Maybe eventually I would want to reread this one at some point. And depending on how long it is until I get the rest of these books in the series, and I've read other stories before that, I may actually go back and read this first and then read the next one, because it continues. So I hope you enjoyed this little comparison video diary kind of thing about these three books. I really, like I said, really enjoyed reading them. They were all just wonderful stories, and it's also helped, like I said, it's sparked me to want to keep reading now. Like I'm not reading any more Cinderella retellings, although there is at least one or two other Cinderella type of books I want to get. I saw one about the stepsisters that I want to get, and there might be one other one, but I'm going to take a break on that because I'm going to read like some of these other books that I have back here before I get into that. So again, like I said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if this has at least sparked interest in you wanting to read one or all of these books. As always, I thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so, please do consider hitting the subscribe button and sticking around. I'll see you on my next video. Make it a Disney day. The final spin brought me up against his chest. Our faces close together, we stood unmoving, unspeaking, until applause rang out around us and our fellow dancers began to bow and curtsy. Startled, I stepped back to gain some much-needed distance. I truly couldn't breathe in this corset. It was much, much too tight. That had to be why I was feeling so overwhelmed.